There is something different about this morning. You notice it before you are fully awake. Before your eyes open, before any thought forms, your body has already registered it. The air against your face is not the same air it was. Something has shifted in the night, and whatever warmth the ground still held is thinner now, narrower, pulled closer to the earth as if it is trying not to be found. You lie still for a moment. Your skin knows something your mind has not caught up to yet. The edge of the hide across your chest is cool where it has lifted in the night. The side of your face that was turned toward the open feels it first. Not pain, not quite discomfort, but a kind of sharpness that wasn't there before, a clarity in the air that has weight to it. You press your shoulder blades down. Your legs draw slightly together. You are not cold yet. Not deeply. But the body has already begun its slow negotiation. Wherever you are as you listen to this, if you find something here that settles you, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to Gentle Human History. If you feel like it, leave a comment telling me where you are right now and what time it is where you are. It is always something to sit with, knowing these quiet moments are reaching people across different hours, different skies. Now, let yourself slow. Let your breath come low and easy. You do not need to go anywhere. You do not need to hold anything. Just let the cold world come to you gently, as it always has. The morning is pale. Not pale the way it gets in the full heat of a dry season, all white and bleached and pressing. This is a softer pallor. The light comes across the land in long strips, low to the ground, like it is moving carefully. The shadows it leaves behind are longer than they should be for this hour. They stretch away from every rock, every ridge of bark, every clump of grass, as if the light does not quite have the strength to shorten them. You sit up. The hide slips back. The air touches your arms immediately, both of them. The fine hairs rise in response. Not because you have thought about the temperature. The body does not wait for that. It moves before you do, raising those small hairs as if to build a thicker layer out of nothing, as if the skin itself is trying to hold something in. You look at your arms for a moment. Then you pull the hide back over your shoulders. It is an easy, ordinary movement. You have done it before. But this time it feels like a decision. The fire from the night before is still there, not much left. A few coals buried in gray ash, holding their heat the way some things do, quietly, without announcement, waiting to be found. You crouch near them and extend your hands. The warmth finds your palms first, then moves up your wrists. You turn your hands over slowly. It is a small pleasure, that reversal of cold. The smoke is thin and almost horizontal. The air is not still. There is a small current moving from somewhere out across the open ground, carrying whatever the night left in it. You smell it before you place it. Dampness. Earth, something vegetable and faintly sharp, the way certain leaves smell when the temperature falls, and they begin to change their chemistry without any instruction from anywhere. Early humans likely lived close enough to fire and animal heat that the first chill of a season would have registered not as a single moment, but as a slow accumulation, several mornings of hands to coals before the mind put a name to what was coming. You add fuel to what remains. Dry bark stripped from fallen timber. A few smaller pieces first, placed gently the way you have learned to do it. Nothing dramatic. You watch the smoke thicken before the flame comes back. When it does come, it is a quiet thing, not large, but enough. You settle near it, your back is still to the open air. The land this morning looks the same as it always has. That is the strange thing about the early cold. It does not announce itself in the landscape, not yet. The trees still hold most of their canopy. The ground is not frozen. The water still moves. Everything is where it should be, and yet something has changed, and you can feel it without being able to point to it. You walk out a short way from where you slept. The grass underfoot is wet, not rain wet, something quieter than rain. Each blade carries a drop at its tip, or at the curve of its stalk, sitting there undisturbed. You have seen this before, many times, and you know what it means even without having words for it. The cold has come down in the night from the air itself. The moisture that was in the atmosphere has settled on every surface it could find: the grass, the leaves, the stones, the backs of insects, the skin of whatever was left uncovered. Your feet are damp before you have gone far. You turn back sooner than you might have on another morning. The others are moving slowly. This, too, is a sign. On warmer mornings, activity comes faster. But today the shapes near the fire are still huddled, or sitting without urgency, or moving with a kind of careful economy, as if each step costs more than it should. You have all woken into the same air, and your bodies have all made the same calculation. Less movement, more closeness. One of the older ones is already holding her knees to her chest, arms wrapped around her shins, chin lowered. She is not asleep. Her eyes are open. She is simply keeping herself warm in the most direct way available, folding herself together, reducing the surface the cold can reach. You sit nearby, not quite touching, but close enough that the warmth between two bodies makes itself felt. There is no conversation about this. It does not need any. By the time the light is higher, you have left the camp and moved into the tree cover. The trees do something the open ground does not. They slow the air. The small current that was coming across the exposed land does not reach as easily here. The temperature is still low, but without the wind finding every gap in your covering, it is more bearable. The body adjusts to what it is given. It finds the places where the cold is less, and it does not question why they are there. You move without hurrying. The ground underfoot is softer here. The leaf cover holds the wet cold in a different way than the open grass. Not droplets on the surface, but a deeper damp, the kind that comes up through the leaves if you press on them. You do not press on them. You step where the ground seems most solid. The light comes through the canopy in pieces, not evenly. The branches have thinned slightly at their edges, though the main cover holds. You notice this the way you notice most things, not as information exactly, but as a shift in the world that the body registers as something to pay attention to. The shadows on the forest floor are colder than the patches of light. You know this without measuring it. You move through the light patches when you can. You find water before midday. A small stream, not deep. The kind that runs clear even when the surrounding ground is wet, because it moves fast enough. You crouch near it and look at the surface. There is no ice. The cold has not reached that far yet. But the stream is lower than it was in the warmer months. Its banks are more exposed. The rocks along the edge are dry in places they were not dry before, showing their gray-brown surfaces to the air. You drink. The water is cold enough that you feel it move down through you. You sit back on your heels and stay there for a moment. The stream makes its sound, not loud but constant, the kind of sound that makes everything else seem very quiet by comparison. A bird calls somewhere above and to your left. Then nothing. Then the stream again. Your hands are cold from the water. You press them flat against the inside of your thighs and wait. This is how it goes. Small adjustments. The body finds where the cold is, and it responds, and then the mind catches up, usually a few moments behind. The walk back takes longer than the walk out. Not because the ground has changed, but because the body is working harder to maintain its warmth on less fuel. You ate something small this morning, seeds and the dried flesh of something from the night before, but not enough to generate much heat in the walking. You feel the difference in your legs. Not weakness exactly, but a heaviness, a sense that the energy is going somewhere it cannot afford to go. Research suggests early humans increased caloric intake in response to cold, not through conscious planning but through the body's own insistence, intensified hunger, a preference for fats, an unwillingness to stop eating when warmth was available. You are thinking about food, not in an urgent way, just a low, steady awareness that you would like more of it, that whatever you ate this morning was not quite enough for a cold morning. You note this the way you note the cold on your skin. It is there, it is present, and it will need attending to. By afternoon, the light has changed again. It is lower, slower, more angled. The shadows that were long this morning have moved to the opposite side of everything, pointing now in the direction of the evening. They have not shortened. If anything, they are longer. The cold has not lifted. If you were tracking it, if you had any way to measure it precisely, you might have noticed that the warmth of midday barely registered today. A slight easing, nothing more, and then the cold coming back. You are near the fire again. The camp feels smaller than it did this morning, contracted around its warmth. The open areas that were used in warmer times, the wider spaces where things were prepared, where people spread out and moved freely, seem less appealing today. Everyone has drawn in a little. Not dramatically, not in any way that could be called a decision. It is more like a tide coming in slowly, everyone moving toward the heat at the same pace, without agreeing to. You add more fuel. You keep the fire fed. This is work, and it will continue to be work. The evening comes earlier than you expect. This, too, is something the body registers before the mind names it. You look up at some point and the light is already pulling out of the sky at the horizon, going through its changes, the gray gold, the darker gray, the flat neutral tone that means the sun is almost gone. And you have not prepared for it. Not fully. You meant to gather more, bring more back, do more, and yet here is the evening arriving. You move quickly for a few minutes. There are things to collect. More fuel. Anything that can keep the fire going through the dark hours. Your hands work efficiently, reaching and pulling and carrying, even though they are cold enough now to feel slightly clumsy at the ends of your fingers. The cold deepens as the light goes. This is expected, but it is still its own thing each time it happens, as if the dark and the cold are the same thing arriving at once, which in some bodily sense they are. Without light, the land cannot hold warmth, and without warmth, the night is long. Everyone has gathered. You sit close enough to the person beside you that your arms touch. The warmth that comes from that is real and immediate. Two bodies together hold more heat than either body alone. This is not something that was explained to you. It was never taught. It is something the body simply knows, the way it knows to curl toward warmth or move away from pain. The fire is better now than it was in the morning, built up properly, burning with a steadiness that feels almost like company. You watch it without thinking about it. The light it throws moves across the ground and across the people near it, and the movement is not uncomfortable to look at. The cold is at your back. The warmth is at your front. You orient yourself accordingly. This is what so much of cold is when you live inside it rather than apart from it. Not suffering, exactly. Not warmth either. A constant slow negotiation between the two. The body turning and turning, trying to keep even, trying to keep enough heat in the places that need it most. Your hands, your feet, your chest, where the lungs sit and need to stay warm to work well. Your face, which you cannot cover completely, which takes the air however it comes. You sleep close to the fire that night. Not dangerously close, close enough. The heat on your face is pleasant, and you turn once away from it when it becomes too much, and then there is only the dark and the cold at your back, and eventually you turn again. You sleep in pieces. This is normal now. The cold wakes you when it finds a gap. When the hide shifts and the air reaches your shoulder, your eyes open and your hand moves to pull the covering back. And then your eyes close again. This happens several times. Not unpleasantly. Just the body doing its work, monitoring, adjusting, keeping the heat where it belongs. The fire is lower each time you wake. Sometime before the first light, you get up and feed it. You do not fully wake for this. Your eyes are still half closed. Your hands find the fuel by touch. You push it into the coals and watch for a moment until the light grows, and then you lie back down. The next morning is colder, not by much, but by enough. When you open your eyes, the air on your face has a different quality. Not the gentle sharpness of yesterday's morning. Something with a little more edge to it. Your breath makes a shape in the air barely visible. Just a small cloud, gone almost before it forms, but there. You lie still and look at it. You breathe out again, watching. The same small cloud. Your breath becoming visible. The moisture in it meeting the cold air and becoming for a moment something you can see. There is something in this that is not exactly alarming. It is not the first time this has happened this season or any other, but it is a sign. A quiet, certain sign. The cold is no longer just arriving. It has arrived. It will stay now. And everything that follows from that, the searching for more warmth, the shorter range each day, the careful management of heat and fuel and food, all of it is beginning. You sit up slowly. The hide stays around your shoulders. You move differently today. Not slower, not faster. Differently. There is a new efficiency in the way you lift your feet, in the way you keep your arms close to your body when you are not using them, in the way you turn your face away from the wind when it comes. None of this was decided. Your body has simply found its cold weather way of moving, the pattern it always finds when the temperature drops far enough. Hunters and gatherers in cold climates develop what might be called a conservational gait, a way of walking that wastes as little heat as possible while still covering necessary ground. The elbows tucked in, the chin down. Short rests in sheltered spots rather than long rests in the open. You know this without knowing it. You stop on a ridge that looks over a wider stretch of land. The wind is stronger here, coming across with nothing to slow it. You turn your back to it almost immediately, and you look the other way, south toward the lower ground where the trees grow thicker and the air might be stiller. You decide to move toward the trees. The land is quieter than it was. Not silent. Never silent, but quieter in a particular way that you have heard before, at other turnings of the season, when the cold starts to press on everything that lives. The insects are mostly gone. Their sounds, the high, continuous drone that fills the warmer months, the clicks and chirrups and the low buzz of so many small things going about their work, have receded. What remains is more intermittent. A bird here, a snap of something in the undergrowth, whined through the thinning leaves. You have noticed the birds are different now, too. The ones that are here in winter are not the same ones that were here when it was warm. Some of the familiar ones are gone. New ones have appeared, moving through in groups, their shapes unfamiliar for a few days before you adjust to them. They seem less settled, more like visitors than residents. The animals you track are moving differently. Closer to the water in the mornings, earlier to shelter in the evenings. You adjust accordingly. You have to know where things are at the time of year when they are hardest to find, and cold changes where everything is. You find yourself at a sheltered place by midday, a low overhang of stone, not deep enough to be a cave, but deep enough to cut the wind entirely. The ground beneath it is dry, protected from the moisture that is collected on everything else. You sit there and open your hands to the air. Inside the overhang it is still cold, but it is a still cold. Without the wind, the air your body warms stays near you. You lean back against the stone. The view from here is open. A valley below, the creek line visible through the trees, the far ridge still catching the low sun on its upper edges. You can see the shadows on the far slope. They are very long, even at this hour. In the warmer months you would not have noticed them this way. You eat what you are carrying. It is not much. Enough to quiet the low hunger, not enough to stop the body from wanting more. Your hands feel warmer after a little while. Digestion puts heat into the system. This too the body knows before the mind explains it. You stay longer than you planned. The stone at your back is cold, but the wind is gone, and the combination of those two things makes the stone cold worth it. You are calculating, in the body's arithmetic, the trade-off between chill and shelter, and the shelter is winning. Coming back into the open is unpleasant. The wind finds you immediately. It has not changed direction. It has not let up. It is patient in the way weather is patient. It does not get tired. It does not run out of what it is made of. It simply continues. You hunch forward slightly and keep moving. Your feet are cold again. They were warming in the shelter. Now the cold comes back up through the soles, not painful but present. A low reminder of how much of your body is in contact with the ground and the air at any moment. You move faster, not quite running, just the faster walk that comes when the body wants to generate its own heat and knows that movement is the way to do it. There is something almost simple about cold when you are deep enough into the experience of it. You are either warmer or you are colder. You move toward warmth or away from cold. You eat to generate heat, you shelter to preserve it, you hold close to others to share it. The thinking is not complicated. The body knows what it needs, and the mind mostly just follows. The afternoon light is copper-colored and low. You have been watching the light all day. Not consciously, not deliberately, but the light has been there, changing, telling you things. It told you this morning when the day was beginning. It tells you now when it is ending. The color it turns before it disappears entirely is a shade that means something, and what it means is less time remains than you thought. You are not back at the camp yet. You move with purpose. The cold is sharpening as the light leaves, the way it always does. The evening transition, when the temperature drops quickly in the space of not very many minutes. Your breath is visible now, clearly and consistently every exhale a small cloud that the cold turns solid for a moment before it disperses. You can see the camp smoke from a distance, thin and pale against the darkening sky, rising and then tilting in the wind. You follow it home the way you have followed it before. The smoke is the fire, and the fire is warmth, and that is enough to navigate by when nothing else is clear. The fire is good when you arrive. Someone has kept it fed. The fuel is piled nearby. More than last night, there is a knowledge that passes among those who live through seasons together, not always spoken, just acted on, that when the cold is deepening, the fire needs more. You add your own contribution to the pile, dead wood you gathered on your way back, bark. A section of something dense and slow burning that will help the fire last longer into the night. You sit down, your legs ache slightly. Not badly, the kind of ache that comes from moving through cold and uneven ground all day, the muscles doing more work than they do in the warm months. Cold makes everything cost more. Walking costs more. Gathering costs more. Even sitting still costs more, the body burning whatever it can find to keep itself at its necessary temperature. You pull the hide tighter around yourself. Then you extend your feet toward the heat. The soles of your feet, cold all day, begin to warm slowly. It is a process, not an event. First, the outermost layer of skin registers the change. Then, gradually, warmth seeps inward. Your toes unfurl slightly, relaxing muscle that had been tensed against the cold for hours without you noticing. Someone brings food. You eat without much attention to it, focused mostly on the warmth, the fire, the slow thawing of your extremities. But the food is real, and it is needed. The hunger that has been running low and steady all day rises to meet it, and then quiets. The body begins to add that fuel to what it is already doing, maintaining heat, repairing the small costs of the day, preparing for the night. The night is the longest part. It is not just about sleep. It is about endurance, the hours when the cold is at its deepest, when the fire has to be tended, when the body must keep its warmth through a long, dark stretch without the activity that generates heat during the day. You know this preparation is happening even if you cannot describe it. The food helps. The closeness helps. The fact that you are not moving through open ground in the wind helps. You settle. The cold night has its sounds, different from the day's quiet. The trees make more noise in the dark, the branches moving against each other where the wind catches them. Somewhere far out, you cannot judge how far a sound reaches you, low and irregular. Probably an animal, but not near enough to require attention. Your body registers it and then lets it go. Not every sound in the dark requires a response. You have learned this. The body learns it too, eventually, to sort the sounds that matter from the ones that are just the world going about its night. The fire settles into itself, burning slower and lower. You have arranged the fuel to last, placed the heavier pieces where they will catch when the lighter ones burn down. You have done this before. You will wake and tend it. For now, it is enough. The second night is harder to sleep through. The cold is deeper. You wake more often. Each time, the fire needs attention and you give it. Twice you get up, add fuel, watch it catch, and lie back down. The third time you wake it is not the fire, it is still going, still adequate. It is simply the cold at your back, which has worked through the hide at some point in the night and settled against your spine. You turn over. Your face meets the warmth from the fire, and your back meets the cold of the open air. And this is better. Your body stops protesting and lets you sleep again. Dreams, if they come, are close to the surface. The cold does something to sleep, shallows it, makes it lighter, keeps some part of the mind checking, monitoring, not quite letting go of the waking world. Early humans sleeping in cold environments were almost certainly lighter sleepers than those in warmth. The body keeping part of its attention on the temperature as a matter of survival. You do not call it survival. You call it sleeping badly. Morning again. The third morning. The cold has not lifted. If anything, the air this morning carries something new in it, a particular stillness, a clarity that is almost strange. The quality the air gets when the moisture has been pressed out of it by the cold itself. Everything smells sharper. Cleaner in a way that is slightly uncomfortable, like the world has been stripped of some soft layer it usually carries. Your breath clouds heavily, more than yesterday morning. Consistently, every exhale, a small visible cloud. You are breathing cold air and turning it warm, and the cold is turning it visible again on the way out. You watch this for a moment with something that is not quite thought, just watching. The ground looks different, not frozen, not solid ice, but harder. The wet that was in the soil 2 days ago has done something, changed its state slightly, stiffened at the surface. When you step on it, there is a slight crispness underfoot, a giving that is not quite the same as before. You press your foot down slowly. The surface gives, then holds. You spend more of the day near the shelter, not because you have chosen to rest, because the range of comfortable movement has shortened. The places you might go on a warmer day, the far ridge, the lower valley, the exposed riverbank, all of them require more time in the open, more time in the wind, more heat generated and expended than the day can support. You move in a smaller radius, you do what can be done close in. There is wood to prepare, hides to work with, the work of pressing and pulling the skins until they stay flexible, which takes longer in the cold because the cold tightens everything, including the material. You work with your hands close to the fire when you can, warming them every few minutes when they become too stiff to do fine work. This is something that does not get said much about cold. It slows the hands. The fine coordination that comes easily in warmth becomes harder, more careful, more deliberate. Things that can be done quickly in summer take twice the time in winter. Cold forces a slowness that is not restful but effortful. Your fingers work. They are good at this, even cold. They have done it before. The light at midday is honest. Not warm, but clear. The kind of winter light that shows everything without softening anything. The shadows of bare branches make their grid across the pale ground. The stream where you passed it yesterday will have dropped further. You know this without going to look. The cold has been pulling the water level down as the days pass, drawing it back to whatever reservoirs keep it, reducing what flows at the surface. You can feel the light on your face when you turn toward it. Not warmth, exactly. Something less than warmth. An absence of wind, perhaps, in the patch of light, and the skin reading that absence as comparative warmth. The difference between cold with sun and cold with shade is real, even if it cannot be measured in any way you could name. You stand in the light for a while. You keep your face turned up, eyes half closed. This is enough, this small, real thing. In the afternoon, you move with someone else. 2 people cover ground differently than one. The pace is adjusted, the range is different, the pauses happen for 2 sets of needs instead of one. But the warmth of another person nearby, even without touching, is something the body registers. The heat of another body in close proximity changes the cold calculation. Slightly, but genuinely. You cover the ground between two stands of trees. In the summer, this crossing would be unremarkable. Now, in the open, the wind finds both of you and the walk becomes a matter of getting it done. You move without stopping, reaching the trees and stepping into the stillness there with a relief that is physical. The sound the wind makes in the upper branches here is different from the sound it makes in the open. Higher. More varied. The trees catch it and break it into smaller currents, and the currents make their own conversation with the leaves that remain. You listen for a moment. Then move on. Cold teaches you to plan ahead in small ways. Not the grand planning of later times, not stored grain and engineered shelter. Just the near planning, fuel gathered before the light is gone. Food found before hunger becomes urgent. Shelter chosen before the cold deepens. You are always 1 or 2 moves ahead of necessity. Research suggests this kind of anticipatory thinking. The modest, survival-linked planning that cold requires may be one of the contexts in which early humans developed the habit of thinking across time, into a near future that could be predicted and prepared for. You do not know this. You just know that you gathered the fuel before you needed it, and now you have it, and that is satisfying in the quiet animal way that having something you need is satisfying. The fire tonight is larger than the fires before it. Someone made that decision. You do not know who first added the extra fuel, who first laid the fire wider rather than taller. But the result is a bigger circle of warmth, and everyone in the group sits at slightly different distances from it depending on how much they want. You sit closer than you have the past 2 nights. The cold at your back is specific now. It has a direction and a character. It comes from the north and northeast, and it is not violent, but it is persistent, the kind of cold that would find its way through given enough time. You turn away from it. You keep your back to where it comes from and your face to the fire. The smoke goes north, tilting with the wind, thinning as it rises. You watch it go. Somewhere above, whatever the smoke becomes disperses into the dark. The night passes. You wake 3 times. Each time, the fire, the cold, the adjustment of the hide. The 3rd time, the sky to the east has the first suggestion of something, not light exactly, not yet, but a lightening of the dark. A gray beginning to separate itself from the black. You stay awake. You have found, without reasoning about it, that there is a quality of quiet in those minutes before the light comes that is different from the quiet of deep night. Everything is still as still, perhaps more still, but it feels like a different kind of stillness. The night's stillness is settled, finished. This is the stillness of something about to change. The cold is at its deepest now, in this hour. The night has given all its heat away and the sun has not yet put any back. Your breath clouds steadily. You pull the hide closer. The fire has come down. You sit and let it come down a little more, watching the coals, the patient glow beneath the gray ash. Then you add fuel. Small pieces first. A careful restart. The smoke rises. The first piece catches. You move through many days like this. Not identical days, each one different in its particular details, the direction of the wind, what you find when you look for food, how the water level sits, which animals are visible, and which have entirely withdrawn from the cold and gone elsewhere. But the rhythm is the same. Cold at the edges of the day. Warmth held at the center of the camp, at the fire's reach. The body adjusting, always in conversation with the temperature that surrounds it. Some mornings there is frost. The first time it appears it is on the grass and on the upper surfaces of flat stones. a fine white coating, glinting when the low sun catches it. It is not snow. Nothing has fallen. The moisture that was in the air has simply settled and frozen where it landed, an overnight depositing of tiny ice crystals on every horizontal surface. You step on the frost-covered grass and hear the small crunch underfoot. The sound is brief, distinct, like something is breaking and then isn't. You stop and press your foot down again, listening to the same small sound. The frost melts as the morning progresses. Not completely, not everywhere. The patches in shadow hold their frost through midday, pale white against the brown ground, appearing from a distance like patches of light where there is no light. But in the sun, the crystals let go of their form and the grass is simply wet, simply cold, the way it has been every morning. You find a place that is good for cold days. It takes several days to find it, going to different locations, testing what the wind does there, what the sun does, what the ground is like. It is a low place between two rises of ground, sheltered on three sides, open to the south. Not a cave, not even an overhang, just a fold in the landscape that the wind passes over rather than through. The ground is dry. The light reaches it for most of the short day. You bring the others to this place. Setting up a camp in a new location has its own work. The fire needs to be established, the sleeping arrangements organized. The hides that were adequate in the warmer shelter need checking against the specific cold of this new spot. Different ground, different wind patterns, the cold coming from different angles in the night. You work through the afternoon doing this. Your hands are cold. Your knees are cold when you crouch to set things at ground level. But the work itself generates heat, and you have learned to be glad of the necessary work in cold weather, to let it warm you rather than resenting that it has to be done. By the time the light is going, the camp is placed. The fire is going. The hides are arranged. You sit at the fire and look south, where the opening of the sheltered fold lets you see out across a long, pale, cold valley. It is still. Very still in that direction. The light has left it, but the sky above is a pale gray blue that gives enough to see by. Nothing moves in the valley. Or nothing you can see from here. The cold continues. Days go by in which the temperature barely lifts. The morning frost stays later and later before the sun can clear it. The water in the lowest part of the stream begins to slow at the edges, moving in a thick, reluctant way that suggests it is being asked to do something that is harder than it was. The animals that remain are more visible now, not because they are less cautious, but because the landscape has fewer places to hide. The leaves that are still on the trees are thin, small, more than half gone. You have changed your coat of skins, you added another layer. Not because you decided to, exactly, but because one morning you reached for the additional covering before you got up and put it on, and the next morning you did the same thing and now it is simply what you wear. The layers are not arranged with any sophistication, they are what they are, animal skins and plant fibers, layered for bulk and warmth, not for elegance. But they work, not perfectly. The wind still finds the gaps. But they slow the cold enough that your core stays warm enough to keep moving, to keep working, to stay functional through the short cold days. There is a stillness that comes with the deep cold, not the stillness of one still moment, a general, sustained stillness. The world pulls back from activity. Movement requires more effort, so there is less of it. Everything that does not have to move doesn't. You can see it in the trees which stand exactly as they are, not swaying even slightly on the calm days. You can see it in the water which runs more slowly and will eventually, if the cold goes far enough, stop in the shallower places. You can see it in the people near you who have reduced their range, their talk, their unnecessary motion, and you can feel it in yourself. A kind of settling, not unhappy, not quite comfortable either. Just the state of being that cold weather brings, a shrinkage of the world to what is essential, a reduction of activity to what cannot be avoided, a gathering of warmth to the center. You breathe slowly. The air is cold on the way in and warm on the way out, and this is the body working, continuously, without rest, keeping the temperature where it needs to be. You have been doing this your whole life. You will keep doing it. One morning the sky is a different color. You notice it before you can name what is different. You are outside the shelter, looking east, and the sky there is not the pale gray or cold blue of the past weeks. It is a uniform white. Not bright white, a flat, close white, as if the sky has lowered itself, come down closer to the land. The clouds, if they are clouds, are so low and even that there is no depth to the sky, only this flat white ceiling. Everything is very quiet. The birds are not calling, the air does not move. You stand very still and look at the sky and then at the ground, and then you wait. The first one falls before you see it coming. You feel it. A small coldness on your forearm, distinct from the background cold. And then it is gone, it has met your skin, and the warmth of your skin has ended it. Then another. And another. You look at the white. The white is falling. Snow is not new to you. It has fallen before, in other cold seasons. But each first snowfall has its own moment. The quality of attention it draws from you is specific and real. You stand in the open and let it come down around you, watching. The ground receives it without drama. Each flake lands and disappears into the dead grass, or the flat stones, or the bare earth, and then, slowly, they begin to accumulate. The world whitens at the edges first, in the places where the snow can settle undisturbed, and then across all the flat surfaces. The sound is different now, or rather, the absence of sound is different. The snow absorbs what little ambient sound there was. The world becomes very, very quiet. Your breath clouds against the white air. You go back inside the shelter and tell no one anything specific, but the others come out to look, too, one by one. They stand and look, and then they look at each other, and there is something in that looking, a shared recognition, not of surprise, but of acknowledgement. The cold has become a different thing now. It is visible. It has taken form. The snow is not heavy. It stays for 2 days, and then the sky clears and the temperature drops further, and now the snow on the ground is not the soft wet thing that fell, but something harder, something with a crust on it from the freezing. When you walk on it, it no longer gives under your foot. It holds you for a moment and then breaks through, and your foot goes down into what is underneath, and coming back out requires effort. You choose your path carefully. The landscape looks different, the familiar is unfamiliar. Every place that was brown or gray or dark with wet earth is now pale, and the features you navigated by, the particular shape of a thicket, the darker patch that marked where a small seasonal stream ran, are hidden or altered. You move more slowly. You do not go as far. The familiar range has contracted, not just because of the cold, but because the cold has changed what the land looks like, has made it harder to read. You stay where you know well enough that you can find your way back without the usual landmarks. The work of cold. You press the sinew through the gap in the material. Your fingers work without complaint. They are cold, but they remember what to do, and they do it. This kind of close work, the repair and maintenance of the things that keep you warm, becomes more important as the cold deepens, not less. A gap in the covering means cold against skin. Cold against skin over a long night means a restless sleep, a colder body, reduced capacity the following day. You do it carefully. The others are doing their own work. Someone is tending the fire. Someone else is sorting through what was gathered in the last days, the dried plant material, the preserved flesh, the seeds and the small dense things that carry their calories in concentrated form. This is the work of winter. Not the wide-ranging work of warm months, the foraging and the hunting across open country. More concentrated, more careful. The work of maintaining what you have rather than finding new. The river has changed. You go to look at it on one of the quieter mornings when the wind drops and the cold is just cold, without character. The river is lower than it was, much lower. The banks that were submerged in the wet season are now exposed, wide belts of pale stone and dried mud showing their surfaces to the air. What water remains moves in the channel differently. More carefully, you might say, if rivers had intentions. It stays to the center, it does not spill. At the very edges where the water is shallow and slow, there is ice, not solid ice. A thin transparency at the margin, fragile-looking, not covering the river but suggesting it might, eventually, if the cold went further. You crouch near it and look. Under the thin layer the sand at the bottom is still visible, and the small stones, and once a dark shape that might be a fish moving in the deep center of the channel. You put your finger on the edge of the ice. It gives slightly under your touch, flexible, not solid, thin enough that it bends. Then it cracks in a small, satisfying way along its edge, and a piece of it lifts free of the bank, and the water takes it. You watch it go. There are things the cold changes in the body that take longer to notice. The skin becomes rougher. Not injured, just different, drier. The fine surface that was soft in the warm months is more textured now, more easily irritated, more prone to cracking at the knuckles and around the mouth. You press the fat from the hides into these places when you can, working it into the dry skin until the surface softens. This is not vanity. This is maintenance. Cracked skin lets the cold in more directly. Cracked skin at the joints makes work harder. Your lips crack too. You run your tongue across them without thinking about it. The hair that grows in cold months is not different from summer hair. It cannot change that fast, or perhaps not at all. But the way you feel it change is real. Every gap at the collar, every place where the coverings do not quite close, is felt more acutely. The small hairs on your arms rise whenever the covering shifts and the cold air finds the skin beneath. This has been happening every morning. You have stopped noticing the individual instances. The response has become background. Water becomes complicated. On warm days, water is water. You go to it, you drink it, you move on. In cold weather, water has moods and states. It can be ice. It can be slush. It can be the thin transparency at a river's edge that holds weight for a moment and then doesn't. It can be the wet that soaks into everything and then freezes against your skin, which is the most dangerous form, not the dry cold which the body handles better, but the wet cold, which strips heat faster than anything else. You learn to avoid getting wet, not because someone told you to, because the times you have gotten wet in cold weather, crossing a shallow stream, handling water carelessly, being caught in a brief, icy rain, your body responded with immediate alarm. Not shivering, not yet, but a sharp, urgent communication from the skin to whatever part of the mind receives such things. This is a problem, this needs to be fixed. Warm yourself, or this will worsen. You have learned to trust that communication. Days pass. You stop trying to count them, if you ever did. The cold continues. It is what the world is now. Your body has adjusted, not to being warm, but to operating at a lower temperature. The shivering that came in the first days of cold is less constant now, not because you are warmer, but because the body has shifted its baseline. Learn to manage at this level without the emergency response. Early humans in consistently cold environments would have developed metabolic and behavioral adaptations over many cold seasons, the body storing fat more efficiently in warm months, the brain calibrating sleep depth and duration, the social group adjusting its range and work to match what the cold allowed. You are part of that learning, season by season. You do not know it is learning, but your body does. There are good days inside the cold. A day when the wind drops entirely and the sun hits the sheltered side of the rise directly, and the cold is just cold. Just simple cold, without the cutting edge that wind gives it. On a day like this, you can sit outside without suffering. You can extend your range a little. You can do the necessary work in something almost approaching comfort. You wash your hands in water that is cold but not brutal. You turn your face to the sun. The warmth it gives at this time of year is real, but it is measured, insufficient to heat the air, only able to heat the surface of things that hold still and face it directly. Your face holds still and faces it. Your eyes close. The others sleep. You watch the fire come down in the evening. Everyone has settled into their cold season positions, drawn in, close, covered. The camp is very quiet. The only sounds are the fire, which is low and steady, and the wind, which has started again outside the sheltered fold, running across the top of the rise without entering. You are not tired, or you are tired but not yet at the edge of sleep. You sit with the fire. This is not an unusual thing. Someone always sits at this hour or wakes in the night to tend it. The fire cannot be left entirely to itself. This is one of the facts of cold. The fire requires tending, and tending requires someone awake, and so the long cold night is shared across many partial sleeps rather than one long one. You add a small piece of fuel. The flame accepts it. You have stopped thinking about the cold. This is the thing that happens, eventually. At some point, the cold becomes simply the world, and the world is what it is, and you move through it without constant negotiation, not because it is no longer cold, not because the body no longer responds, but because all of that response has been incorporated into ordinary behavior. Wearing the extra covering is just what you do. Tending the fire through the night is just the night. Moving in a smaller radius is just the range. The cold has taught you its shape, and you have learned it, and now you simply live inside it. Some mornings you wake and lie still. Not from cold, necessarily. Sometimes the temperature is just barely tolerable and the body has generated enough heat through the night and the hide is holding and there is no immediate reason to move. So you don't. You lie there and listen to the sounds outside the shelter, the wind, the birds if there are birds, the occasional creak of wood, and you let wakefulness come at its own pace. This is not laziness. This is winter. The body knows to conserve. Moving costs heat, and heat costs food, and food is not as easy to find as it was. So the body offers you this, the permission to be still, to warm slowly, to not rush into the cold morning before you have gathered enough warmth to sustain you through it. You accept the permission. You lie there. Your breath comes slow. Your eyes are open but not focused on anything particular. The pale light comes through the gaps in the covering, enough to tell you it is morning, not enough to say how cold it is. You will know soon enough. The cold is long, longer than any single day of it, longer than the sum of the individual discomforts. The cold is the season, and the season is not something that passes quickly. It requires patience that is not a virtue, but a physical fact. You cannot hurry it, you cannot escape it, you can only move through it at the pace it allows. Some days the cold is boring. This is the truth that gets left out of descriptions of ancient life. The long days near the fire, doing repetitive work, waiting for the light that comes briefly and then goes. The sameness. The cold that does not change enough from one day to the next to feel like anything is happening. You work your hands, you keep the fire, you do what needs doing. There are animals that do not slow. You have seen them in the cold months before. The ones that move through the snow with an ease that surprises you. The ones whose coats are thicker now than they were in summer, who seem built for this where you merely endure it. You watch them with something that is not quite envy, or maybe it is, a quiet kind of recognition that they carry their warmth with them in a way you cannot. You are always slightly cold. They seem not to be. You observe this without being able to change it, which is the nature of observation. What you can do, what you do, is learn from it. The thicker coats they wear, you replicate with the hides you gather. The places they shelter, you look at for clues about where the wind is managed best. The foods they find in winter, the roots, the bark, the things under the snow, you have learned to find too, in your own way. You have been learning from the cold world your whole life. One evening the sky clears completely. After days of cloud, the cover breaks and the stars come out in more numbers than you have seen for weeks. The cold that comes with a clear sky is a different kind of cold, drier, more absolute, without the insulating thickness of cloud between you and what is above. But the sky is worth it. You look up. The stars are very clear. Very still. They do not move in the time you watch them, though you know from other nights, other seasons, that they do move, that they arc slowly across the dark, taking the whole night to do it. Right now they are simply there, very cold, very distant, very bright. The fire is small tonight. You let it be small. The sky compensates. You lie back and look up, the cold pressing in from every direction, and you do not move for a long time. You begin to notice small things, or rather, you begin to notice that you notice small things. The way the frost on the north side of a tree holds longer than the frost on the south side. The way certain stones warm slightly in the afternoon sun and hold that warmth into the early evening. The places where animals have disturbed the snow, made paths, worn roots into the landscape that show you where they have been going, and where, perhaps, they will go again. The cold world is legible if you look at it long enough. You have been looking at it your whole life. Cold has its own beauty, and you know this even without words for it. The clarity of the frozen morning, when every surface is sharp and distinct. The geometry of ice crystals on a flat stone, each one perfectly formed, each one its own exact pattern of radiating arms. The way the frost on the grass catches the low winter sun and turns it into a field of pale fire, lasting only a few minutes before the warmth dissolves it. The moon on a clear cold night, brighter and harder than it ever looks in summer, the landscape under it silvered and strange and familiar at once. None of this warms you. But it is something. There is a quality to the attention that cold weather demands that brings you into the world very specifically. You are not abstract in cold weather. You are exactly here, exactly in this body, exactly in this temperature. You cannot drift. The cold anchors you to the present moment with a kind of authority that nothing else quite manages. You help someone whose hands have grown too cold to work. You take their hands between yours and press them. Your own hands are not warm. Not exactly. But they are warmer than the air, and that is enough. You hold their hands and wait. This is not complicated. This is the most direct transfer of heat that is available to you. Body to body, no tools required, just the warmth of one living person shared with another. Early human groups likely developed an intuitive understanding of shared body heat as a resource to be distributed, not a private possession. Cold, more than perhaps any other environmental force, makes the group's warmth communal. The person whose hands you are holding looks at you. You look back. Then they take their hands back and return to their work. Something shifts in the days, not the temperature, not yet. But the light. It is a slow change, nearly impossible to catch in any single day. But across the run of days, across the accumulated weight of mornings watched from the same direction, there is something. The light lasts slightly longer. The shadows at the end of the day fall slightly later than they fell a week ago. The angle at which the sun crosses the sky is not quite the same. You notice this the way you notice changes in the forest, not as a single event but as a pattern your body assembles from many observations. The cold has not lessened. In some ways, the coldest days are still ahead. But the light is returning, slowly, degree by degree, and the body responds to light even when the temperature does not follow. You are not warm. But you are slightly less in the dark. There is a morning that is different. The same cold. The same frost on the ground, but when you stand at the edge of the shelter and face south, the sun is higher already than it was a month ago at this same hour. Not much, but measurably. You feel it on your face, the angle of it. It is still a winter sun, still cold yellow and weak, but it has lifted itself slightly in the sky, and that slight lifting changes the quality of the light. You stand there longer than you mean to, your face in the sun, your back in the shade. The frost on the south-facing slope below you is gone by midday, melted in a way it would not have been a few weeks ago. The north-facing slope still holds it, white and cold. But the south side, where the sun can reach now with more directness, is showing its dark ground again. Something will grow there eventually. Not yet. But the possibility is becoming something the land is beginning to hold. The fire tonight is low and good. Low meaning it does not take much fuel to keep it going at this level, and that is a kind of economy. Good meaning the warmth it gives is even, steady, the coals deep enough to stay hot through the night without constant attention. You arrange yourself. The hide across your shoulders, the ground beneath you, which is cold but not damp here in the sheltered fold. The person to your left also settling, their warmth adding its own small contribution. The night sounds outside, still, mostly, tonight. The clear cold does something to the air that makes the world very quiet. Your eyes are heavy. This is the transition, the slow one, from the waking cold to the sleeping cold. Your body does not warm when you sleep, it manages its temperature, holds it, keeps it steady through the long dark hours. But the awareness of cold recedes. Sleep puts a filter on the sensation. Your breathing slows. You are very still now. Everything has come down to this. The shelter, the fire, the covering. the person nearby. The cold is still there, it has not gone anywhere. It will not go anywhere for many more weeks. But your body has found its equilibrium for this night. The heat it is generating is enough to maintain what it needs, and the covering is holding that heat in, and the fire is adding the small additional warmth that means the difference between comfort and endurance. This is enough. It has always been enough. The body knows this in a way the mind never fully grasps, that survival is not about defeating cold, not about escaping it or ending it, but about finding the particular arrangement of bodies and fuel and shelter and covering that lets you pass through the night. You are passing through this night. The cold holds you and you hold the warmth. Breath by breath. Night by breath. Your hands have stopped moving. Your face has relaxed. The small muscles around the eyes and mouth let go. The slight tension the cold keeps in the jaw released. You are warm enough where you are. You are as warm as you need to be for now. The fire gives its light. The dark holds its cold. And somewhere between those two things, in the narrow space where warmth is enough, you sleep. There is nothing to explain. The cold will come back in the morning. Your hands will be cold before you are fully awake. You will move toward the fire before you have thought about it. You will do what you have always done, what your body already knows. But right now there is only this. The breath. The warmth. The long, cold, bearable human night.